Why did Disney cut this song from one of the most iconic Muppet movies? Released in 1992, Muppet Christmas Carol has become a firm favourite of the holiday season. No doubt many of you watching this video will be getting ready to watch Muppet Christmas Carol or have already watched it this Christmas. But did you know that there is a song in the movie that was cut from its theatrical release, only to be found on home video? Not only that, it was a song that the film's director did not want to cut, but Disney executives did. And despite requests to reinstate the song for future releases of the movie, Disney were unable to find the original film footage, meaning the song was lost to the annals of time, only to be found on those old VHS tapes and YouTube rips of them. And then, one day, Disney found the footage. But why was the song cut in the first place? How did it gain such a cult following? And how did Disney finally find the missing footage? This is how When Love Is Gone was found.
Just wanted to shout out the fine folk on screen who backed us at patreon.com/cutscene. And if you head over there right now, not only is there a 5-hour deep dive review of Spider-Man 3 featuring myself and WrestleTalk's Ollie Davis, there is a huge scene-by-scene breakdown of Madam Web, arguably the worst comic book movie of 2024. If you enjoy the videos we make here, please do consider backing us at patreon.com/cutscene.
Love is gone.
The 1980s were a tough time for the Muppets and their creator Jim Henson. Though the Jim Henson Company had TV hits with Muppet Babies and Fraggle Rock, the Muppet trilogy of movies had come to an end with Muppets Take Manhattan, which had taken less at the box office than both 1981's The Great Muppet Caper and 1979's The Muppet Movie. Henson was more or less done with the Muppets. He'd given Frank Oz, the director, reins on Muppets Take Manhattan, but his ventures outside of Muppetdom also weren't working out. While 1982's The Dark Crystal and 1986's Labyrinth weren't exactly box office flops, both movies underperformed given the Henson name that was attached to them. He made The Storyteller in the UK, but returned to Kermit & Co. for 1989's Jim Henson Hour. Sadly, the show, which was half behind the scenes and random skits and half reruns of The Storyteller, was a ratings disaster for NBC, who pulled it after just 9 episodes.
Do we have secrets?
Yes we do!
During this time, Henson had begun to speak with Michael Eisner about selling the Jim Henson Company to Disney, as the pair had a relationship dating back to the late 1970s when Eisner gave The Muppet Show the green light at ABC. Eisner had joined Disney in 1984 with the idea that he, along with Frank Wells and Jeffrey Katzenberg, would fix the House of Mouse. Eisner was in the process of reigniting Walt Disney Animation when in the spring of 1989, Henson contacted him about selling his company. Henson's logic was that by selling his company, he could focus on creating and being an artist, and Disney would worry about the business side of things. The deal, reportedly worth $150 million, would see a 15-year exclusivity agreement where Henson would make movies, TV shows, and theme park attractions for Disney, and would give Disney the rights to his creations like Fraggle Rock and the Muppets. While Henson began doing work for Disney, which included the TV special The Muppets at Disney World, as well as developing Muppet Vision 3D for MGM Studios, negotiations were not as easy as they'd initially anticipated, essentially boiling down to Eisner wanting Sesame Street to be part of the overall Henson deal, which wasn't really possible. Despite this, Henson and Eisner announced the deal on Good Morning America in August of 1989, and the Muppets at Disney World special ended with Mickey Mouse welcoming Kermit & Co. to the family. Disney would actually not acquire the Jim Henson Company until 2004, and one of the reasons the deal never got completed was because on May 16, 1990, Jim Henson passed away, aged 53. The Jim Henson Company was now without its captain and wasn't sure on what to do next. Though according to Jim's son Brian Henson, his father didn't have a clear plan prior to his death either. He told The Independent in 2022, "Even my dad wasn't sure what to do next with the Muppets. When he died, he was selling the company to Disney, and his big thing that he wanted to do was Muppet attractions at Disney World. He was getting very excited about that because I think he was unsure where to go next with the movies." Although Muppets Take Manhattan had not been a big hit, the Jim Henson Company did still want to make more Muppet movies. Jerry Jewell had written a script in the mid-1980s titled The Cheapest Muppet Movie Ever Made, where Gonzo would be given the green light by Kermit to make a movie, but blows half of the production budget on the opening titles, meaning the rest of the film becomes cheaper and cheaper the longer it goes. Sadly, the stresses of the Disney deal meant the film never went into production. In the wake of Henson's passing, the Muppet Brain Trust met and decided to keep going. David Goulds would later tell The Guardian, "Brian called a meeting to see whether we wanted to continue without Jim. And every single one of us said, it just feels like our life's work and we'd like to try and go ahead." This was about 5 p.m. on the day he died. As Kermit says at the end of the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson, "That's the way the boss would want it."
That's the way the boss would want it.
It was Brian Henson's talent agent Bill Haber who pitched the idea of the Muppets doing a parody of A Christmas Carol, the classic story by Charles Dickens. Henson would later joke with The Guardian in 2015, "While I was thinking about it, he called me back and said, 'I've sold it to the ABC TV channel.'" The idea was a simple one. Put the Muppets in A Christmas Carol, and hilarity ensues. Robin or Scooter would be the ghost of Christmas past, Miss Piggy would be the ghost of Christmas present, and Animal would be the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Brian Henson would later say, "We were going to do a romping parody." Jewell, who had written the Muppet movie and The Great Muppet Caper, felt that the parody wasn't working, and his reasons were twofold. Number one, he argued that Dickens' book was too good to make fun of, and number two, he could not find a way to get one of his favourite Muppets, Gonzo, into the script. In the end, he came up with the idea of playing it as a straight adaptation and giving a lot of Dickens' prose to Gonzo as the film's narrator. Henson joked with The Independent, "I think his script is about 98% Dickens' prose. Almost never does he veer from it. 98% is probably too high, but it's mostly Dickens' prose." Disney liked Jewell's new script so much that they upped the budget and decided to move it off TV and release it theatrically, their first big screen outing in over a decade. This movie, titled The Muppet Christmas Carol, would be a relaunch of the franchise for the 1990s, a new era for the characters in a post-Jim Henson world. This would also be Brian Henson's first directorial role, something lead actor Michael Caine couldn't believe when he found out halfway through production, and Henson would later tell The Guardian that Disney executives were quite protective of his well-being. He said filming it was completely terrifying. "I was 28, I did not feel ready to do a movie. I begged other people to direct. Geoffrey Katzenberg could see that it was an emotionally fragile environment and he kept his production department away from me. But there was one thing that Geoffrey Katzenberg did step in for."
I love you, Bill.
You did once.
Muppet Christmas Carol wasn't just set to be the big return of the Muppets, but also a reunion of sorts. Paul Williams, a prolific songwriter for film and TV, he wrote the theme tune for Love Boat, also worked with Jim Henson on 1977's Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas and 1979's The Muppet Movie. He was the man behind such iconic tracks as When the River Meets the Sea, Movin' Right Along, and The Rainbow Connection, which earned him an Academy Award nomination. But with fame and fortune can often come demons. Henson said, "To be honest, I was surprised my dad moved off from Paul's work for the second two Muppet movies. Then I learned it was because Paul had substance abuse problems that got bad after the first Muppet movie." Williams himself would tell Vulture in 2015, "You know you're an alcoholic when you misplace a decade. And essentially, the 80s were gone for me." He added, "It was a dark period of my life. I went from Johnny Carson's couch to peeking out the windows through the Venetian blinds looking for the tree police." Williams entered himself into rehab and on March 15, 1990, emerged a sober man just a few months before Jim Henson passed away. Because of his previous addictions, Disney were unsure about Williams doing the music for this new Muppet movie, but Brian Henson assured them that he could get it done. Once Williams started sending in his ideas for songs, all worries were squashed. Goals told The Independent, "I remember driving around listening to the first cassette of tracks, and he'd done it again." For Williams, he saw a lot of connections between himself and Scrooge. A Christmas Carol, after all, was about a man discovering a new lease on life, something Williams himself had just received from his newfound sobriety. Williams wrote all the songs for Muppet Christmas Carol: Scrooge, One More Sleep Till Christmas, A Thankful Heart, It Feels Like Christmas, and the ballad, When Love Is Gone. Henson told Entertainment Weekly, "We wanted a love song in the movie, and we felt like there was no relationship that really justified a love song. Then we realized that we would do the opposite." When Love Is Gone, sung by Meredith Braun, comes when Scrooge is visiting his Christmas past and must confront the moment when his fiancée Belle breaks off their relationship due to his focus on gaining wealth. Braun was very comfortable with singing the song, as she'd been performing Les Mis prior to being cast in Muppet Christmas Carol, but the same could not be said for her co-star. Henson said of Michael Caine, "He was extremely nervous, but it wasn't that important how melodically perfect his vocals were, because Scrooge is crying while he's singing. Michael did need to do lots of takes." Williams recalls a funny story from the recording, telling Vulture, "I walked up to Michael Caine and introduced myself. I said, 'Wonderful to meet you. I'm so excited to be working with you.' He said, 'Are you out of your mind? We spent an entire weekend together in London. We were at the White Elephant gambling. I didn't remember. It was very embarrassing, but also very funny. We both laughed. It was the ghost of Christmas past showing me where I'd come from." Williams would later tell Entertainment Weekly, "It's one of my favorite things I've ever written in my life, that song. The main character is this lost soul, but has a spiritual awakening, and I was in the throes having had a spiritual awakening. I was very much in the same place as Scrooge is at the end." And it is a ballad, one that feels both at home where it's placed in the movie and beautifully performed, but it's also very earnest. In writing about the movie for Book Riot, Maddie Rodriguez argues When Love Is Gone is at an admittedly somewhat heterogeneous moment, a sad, slow, and distinctly adult song in a film where even macabre appearances of the Marleys includes jokes, dancing, and of course, singing inanimate objects. Braun would tell The Independent, "I didn't question the fact that it was a sad song in a Muppet movie because so is Rainbow Connection. They've done it from the very beginning. But the fact that it is a sad song is what led to it being cut." Jeffrey Katzenberg had created a reputation for himself in Disney of hating ballads in children's movies. In a 2019 interview with Polygon, Jodie Benson revealed that Katzenberg wanted to cut Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid because some children dropped their popcorn during an early screening. The song only remained in the final edit because the song's lyricist, Howard Ashman, threatened to leave the film if it got cut. In Disney War, James Stewart writes, following another screening of the film, he requested that they cut Kiss the Girl, which at that point was just storyboarded and unanimated. When Ashman argued to keep it in, Katzenberg demanded that it be cut in half. Stewart writes, "Ashman looked wounded. Everyone tried to change Katzenberg's mind, and finally, lead artist Glenn Keane got him to leave the song alone for one more screening. Ashman and others held their breath as the sequence, now in full color, played. No one in the audience budged, and the song stayed." Katzenberg's request to cut the film's opening number, a Broadway musical-style opening titled Fathoms Below, did get cut, and the same fate was about to hit When Love Is Gone. Katzenberg saw a screening of Muppet's Christmas Carol with the song in and suggested that it be cut from the movie. Some have mistakenly said that Katzenberg demanded the song get cut, much like he had with Part of Your World and Kiss the Girl, but according to Brian Henson, it was never forced upon him to cut it. He said, "Katzenberg never forced me to do anything, but he said, 'Do you see how antsy these kids are getting?' He's like, 'It's just a little too adult emotional for little kids to stay connected.'" Henson reluctantly agreed to remove the song. Meredith Braun would tell Variety in 2022 that the director was gutted that it got cut and even wrote her a letter to apologize for its absence from its theatrical run. But an agreement was put in place. When Love Is Gone would be cut from the theatrical run, but would be put into the movie for its home media release. The idea being that if a kid gets bored during the song, they can simply fast forward, which isn't really an option when you're at a cinema screen. Henson told Entertainment Weekly, "The movie certainly plays well without the song, but I obviously preferred having the song in. I think it's good for kids to be pulled into deeply emotional moments, even if they feel slightly awkward about it when they're in a movie theater." Williams adds, "I was disappointed, but I wasn't devastated. If I was still drinking and using, I probably would have gone crazy, but I was just grateful to have the other songs in there." Braun told Vulture, "Brian wrote to me and he was hugely upset by it and massively apologetic. He just made it very clear that it wasn't his choice." For Henson, this wasn't just a ballad that kids might get bored with. The song's title, When Love Is Gone, thematically ties into the film's closing number, When Love Is Found. The song happens at Scrooge's lowest ebb. It's the last thing he sees in his Christmas past before returning to the present. Not only that, but the song's melody runs throughout the movie, acting as the film's motif. Cutting it means cutting out the film's heart. Braun, however, would add to Variety that she wasn't fazed by the song being cut, saying the song wasn't in the cinema release, but it was still on VHS. I remember Brian was really gutted about it. He was very sweet, but I was like, well, it still exists. What's the problem? The cinema thing will come and go, and it will stay on tape. And, in a way, Braun was proved correct.
I'll bring it to Bob Cratchit's house. What a surprise it'll be.
Because the song was only ever released on home media, it gained somewhat of a cult following, only known by those who grew up with the video release, the Laserdisc release, or the first DVD release of the film in full screen. The song would not be available on the widescreen DVD release, the Blu-ray release, or when it ended up streaming on Disney+. Braun would say with it being cut out, it sort of became bigger, and every so often I'd see Facebook campaigns to put it back in. I've had people say that they paused the movie at that point, put it on YouTube, and then hit play again. It's spoken about more these days than when we made it. Williams told Entertainment Weekly, "The outrage that I didn't feel then, I hear from fans of the movie now." The Prince Charles Cinema in London, known for its screening of classic films with fan participation, became known for their annual Muppet Christmas Carol sing-along run. Throughout the month of December, the cinema would show multiple screenings of the movie, complete with lyrics on screen, and encourage the audience to sing along with it. At the start of each screening, a Santa Claus would do a Christmas jumper competition, hand out prizes, and, to get the audience warmed up, show an airing of the Muppet Christmas Carol VHS version of When Love Is Gone.
For a long time, it was like such a big bonus to add, like a nice surprise, because over the years we'd have so many people who would like, and I think even to this day, still, even though it's back in the film now, we would still get people just like, oh, when Love Is Gone going to be in it? Is When Love Is Gone going to be in it? Like it would be on social media as well, and it's almost like this like expectation that it will be shown. I think it's like a big part of that, like it became such a big part of that screening experience for the audience. Like it's just being this nice big surprise, because obviously like for the longest time we couldn't show that song within the film.
And it wasn't just fans that wanted to see When Love Is Gone restored into the film. Brian Henson revealed that he would call Disney every couple of months and ask for them to reinstate the song into a Blu-ray or onto Disney+. But there was a problem. Disney had lost it. He told The Independent, Disney lost the negative. When we went back to do the VHS transfer, the highest level was British PAL 625 video, but if someone wanted a higher definition version, we needed to find the negative, and nobody could find it. He added in an interview with The Big Issue, "We made a video master with When Love Is Gone, then we cut it out, spliced the negative for the theatrical release. But in the process, they lost the video master and they still have not been able to find the negative. When we tried cutting it into the Blu-ray movie, it looked terrible because you could tell we'd cut from high resolution to the original video release." He told Entertainment Weekly, "No matter how hard we tried, it never looked good enough." Despite Brian Henson's constant request, Disney always came back with a shrug and "sorry, we can't find it." And then, on the 9th of December 2020, nearly 30 years since the movie's release, it was revealed that When Love Is Gone had been found. Henson appeared on BBC's Radio 2 in the UK to announce that Disney had finally found the original negative for When Love Is Gone and had reinstated it into the movie. Well, sort of. They'd found an interpositive somewhere in Europe, according to Henson in an interview with The Independent, which he says was just as good as finding the original negative. Disney had asked Henson to come to watch a new 4K remaster of Muppet Christmas Carol, not telling him that they put the song back in. He said, "I was so excited. They actually hid it, so I went down and they said, 'But before we show it to you, we've got something else we want to show you.' And they put up reel 4 of Muppet Christmas Carol with When Love Is Gone. I was like, 'No, you did not,' and they said, 'Yes, we did. We found it.' I was so happy. I was so happy." This meant that all future releases of Muppet Christmas Carol, including its streaming on Disney Plus, would have the full version of the movie, complete with the missing ballad. Meredith Braun, who did a new recording of the song for her 2017 album When Love Is Gone, told Variety in 2022, "It's the strangest thing. How many years later and they've suddenly put it back in? For me, it's the gift that keeps on giving in a kind of funny way." Of course, this has meant a change to the screenings of the movie at the Prince Charles Cinema.
Yeah, I guess it just like, it became such a big part of the Muppet Christmas Carol sing-along event that it was a special like scene that seemed to like just be something that a lot of people wanted to see, wanted to sing along to. For the longest time, it was something that we could just give them as like a bonus treat and as a fun special addition to the pre-show. Now that it's back into the film, it's maybe it's also a little bit of its luster in terms of like the surprise element, but like it seems like people love that song so much that it's more of like, I think it's like the importance to it is just the audience having a great time with it, and they seem to really love that scene. So it's like down to the audience to like really want that experience.
I wish you well, but I must leave you now alone.
And that, everyone, is how When Love Is Gone was found. God bless us, everyone. The 90s were a difficult time for Mickey Mouse. Despite Disney doing some of its best work and best box office returns due to their decade renaissance, the company's mascot didn't really play a role. His contemporaries like Donald and Goofy had their own success in TV and film, but Mickey himself was nothing more than a theme park attraction.